What's up, YouTube? Josh of All Trades here, and I'm still waiting for Westworld to start, so in the meantime, I decided to binge watch the HBO crime drama biopic, The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. Now, you guys know that I watch something, and I'm usually fairly opinionated about it, and I try to spit it to you straight. I try to candidly give you my feedback, but this one, I gotta say, it's pretty obscure. Now, in case you're not familiar with The Jinx, it is a 6-part biographical miniseries that came on HBO that details some mysterious deaths and disappearances that Robert Durst, the heir to a New York City commercial property dynasty, is suspected to be involved in. Now, in this review, I'm not planning to give away any big spoilers because this series, it's about 5 hours and it is a little bit of a time commitment, and you deserve the experience of watching this play out in front of you. So I'm not going to give away any big reveals, but instead I want to focus on some background events. I will bring those up and talk about how I feel they're relevant to the series and they're relevant to the narrative they're trying to present here. What I'm saying is, if you haven't seen it yet, then continue watching with low caution. I'm going to start high level. I think that The Jinx was a blast to watch. Now, it is a documentary, and it does have all of the distinct characteristics of the genre. We have tons of interviews, voiceovers, the director explaining what he's doing in the film and where he's taking things. But The Jinx also feels a lot like a conventional crime drama. In The Jinx, enough people are interviewed that we really get a lot of perspectives like a traditional film. We see what's going on with the defense, we see what's going on with the prosecution, the witnesses, people outside of the family. We get all that. Also, it's really interesting because the story of Robert Durst is truly one of those stranger than fiction stories. If there is any true life murder mystery story that deserves its own miniseries, this is the one. The power of The Jinx is the way that the director leaps backwards and forwards through time, just like a movie would. The events being investigated happened sometime between the interval of 1982 and 2001, and between interviews from back then, news clips, and then some dramatizations, of course, of what happened. Between all that background information, we have a rich context and store of information for how we should perceive the interview with Robert Durst that's happening in real time, present day. And y'all know that I'm just a huge sucker for like slow camera pans over beautiful imagery, and The Jinx had that cinematic quality that really satiated my appetite for pure imagery. The next thing that, in my opinion, made this a really successful series is the man Robert Durst. Like, he's such an interesting guy just to sit there and look at. In his interview scenes, he's got like all these like twitchy facial mannerisms that he has going on without really seeming compulsive. He also has these really dark eyes that match like his emotionless dialogue really well. Also, this is just a really smart guy. You can tell from the way that he talks and the vocabulary that he uses that he's on a very high level of thinking. He's probably very educated, and it keeps us as the audience kind of on our toes, guessing that while this guy's very eloquent and good to listen to, it makes us constantly think about the sentences and the wording that he's using and guess to ourselves, like, is he telling the truth or is he lying right now? So going a level above the plot, when we're just thinking about The Jinx thematically, it was really unique as far as the idea goes because it talks a lot about Robert Durst and just how wealthy he was from the start and how that gives him a really unique perspective through which he perceives reality. The Jinx is about this guy that was born with more money than most people will ever have, and in a way it makes him kind of callous to like regular common people problems. Which is interesting because how could you empathize with someone who, for example, is behind on their rent when you're never going to experience that and you don't understand what the stress of that is going to be like? In a way, The Jinx makes us sympathize with Robert Durst because a lot of the problems in this guy's life come from situations where he's forced to interact with, as he says, average people. Throughout Robert Durst's life, he's had not only relational problems with his family, but he's had to contend with all the lower strata of society valuing him only for his money and, in the end, holding their hand out for a piece of it too. I'm a big fan of Wes Anderson films because, after all, he is a UT Austin graduate. But his films often have this theme of problems of the upper socioeconomic class, and in a way, The Jinx almost feels like some type of dramatic reality show take on one of his films. Now, I do have a couple small grievances with this series. I think it got a little long, especially in episodes 5 and 6. They were kind of drawn out, and I think they could have been condensed into one smaller, faster-paced episode. Also, some of the moments that were positioned to be super pivotal to the narrative are things that Durst said in his interview when he wasn't aware that he's being recorded. Now, I'm not claiming to be some type of authority on ethics, especially when interviewing a suspected murderer, but the way they did it feels just a little cheap to me. If you have an insightful comment about the morality of what you can and can't record when interviewing a murderer, go ahead and leave a comment. But even with these concerns, The Jinx was an interesting series to watch and I enjoyed it a lot. The director Andrew Jarecki did really well both from the creative and the informative perspective, so I liked this work and I'm looking forward to seeing something else that he does. If you're a fan of crime drama or documentaries, then you're probably going to enjoy The Jinx. It comes in at just about 5 hours in length and it details the events without being crazy verbose. I hope you enjoyed The Jinx also. If you enjoyed my video, go ahead and hit a thumbs up. Hit subscribe below if you want to get updates about my videos, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye y'all.